So our headliner this evening is Don Wettrick. Don is Innovation Coordinator at Noblesville High School and is the author of Pure Genius, Building a Culture of Innovation. He is also the founder of Start Ed Up Foundation, an organization dedicated to have students collaborate with nonprofits and think like an entrepreneur. Lastly, Don hosts a podcast, Start Ed Up, where he interviews some of the top entrepreneurs and thought leaders like Gary Vee, Seth Godin, Amy Wilkinson, and Daniel Pink, just to name a few. They weigh in on what education needs to do to prepare our youth. Please help me welcome to the stage our headliner, Don Wettrick.
Now with the doom and gloom. All right. So the educational dream to reality. We're going to talk about this tonight. First of all, one of the things that I like to do, I'm a teacher now of 21 years, and one of the driving questions I like to ask schools is, why are we here? For years, it was get the kids to assembly line things. If you could memorize things short term, do well in the SAT, you got to go to a famous college, and everything would turn out fine. That's not necessarily the case anymore. We have dramatically shifted in how people are hiring. Now it's skills-based. And so the most cliche answer that we can give as educators is, I'm preparing my kids for the future. I like a lot of education, but there needs to be time in the day to get things to be prepared for the future. So basically, we've all gone, by the way, I graduated in college in 1995. I'm 46 years old. This dream was always, if you work hard and get good grades, you go to a good college, and then you get a good job. That has dramatically changed. Matter of fact, underemployment is at an all-time high, and it's really at time we need to talk about something different. Now, I'm not saying that all education is broken. I'm saying that part of it is obsolete. For example, that's one of my other daughters. If you held up two old cell phones and you said, why aren't the Instagrams working? The Instagrams don't work on that. The phone is not broke. By the way, those still both work. We keep them still for some reason. But those phones are not broken. They're obsolete. And several of the methods that we use in education of short-term memorization have no bearing in where we're headed. Matter of fact, spending time to memorize a lot of things is pointless when everything is now in your pocket. Everything. And so the skills that we're looking for in the future are not necessarily being taught in our schools. And think about it. Like how to file your taxes, how to avoid taxes, how to buy and sell a home, how to repair things. These are things that we don't teach. And the reality also is that now, and this is something I'm truly passionate about, is that we're crippling our kids with debt. The average in Indiana is $26,500. $26,000 over 4 years is over $100,000. That's a lot of money. And we are still shepherding a lot of kids into majors that aren't hiring. And while we like the rah-rah, I sent my kid to a school that has a good basketball team, if your son doesn't play basketball, also kind of a problem. We need to start refocusing what we're doing in education. The other reality is, this is something that's near and dear to my heart, is that we now have record levels of anxiety and depression. Underemployment. It was funny, and I get it, like it was kind of funny to always say, oh, the millennial, they're not moving out of mom and dad's house. They complain a lot. I get it. But in all fairness, they're the first generation that they did it the right way. They did it the way mom and dad wanted them to, and there was not a prize at the end of the rope. I have so many kids that want, I'm not going to slam on any university. Some are out-of-state Ivy League schools, and there are some who studied in majors that now they are crippled with debt. They are majorly unemployed. And it's kind of hard because the number one cause of divorce is money. The number one cause of a lot of depression is money. And so I'm totally bringing your vibe down, and I'm sorry. Like everybody was so positive tonight, but this is one of the reasons why we're on a mission. And the other thing is that, you know, a lot of times people are hiring kids, and they go, well, you need 3 years of experience to be able to hire here. And so a lot of my college students are saying, how do you get experience if you're just now getting out of school? And the other thing is that we also now have a new problem, and that is cell phone addiction. That our kids are constantly comparing themselves on what they're not on Instagram. Now, the last thing is the toxic mind culture, and this is one of the things that I'm not going to go political. But the sit and wait for instructions is also the most toxic thing we can do. Having our kids sit down and shut up and wait for instructions is no longer the thing to do. Having them to go protest and march about everything is not bringing solutions. Awareness campaigns are cool, but if you're not doing anything, you're just complaining. And then that's also why the new reality is, if I'm preparing them for the future, according to Forbes and a lot of other sources, half the nation's jobs by 2020 will be freelance or gig. If this is the new reality, having our kids sit down and wait for instructions, having our kids memorize things short term, is dead. And it's toxic. And it's bad. And meanwhile, as our kids now even sit furthermore and like even more passive and like scroll through all the things their life is not, this is the recipe for absolute disaster. Because Generation Z, they have the big ideas, but the wrong approach. By the way, Gen Z is a little bit different than millennials. I actually have a little bit more hope because they are a little bit more realistic on what they're up against, and they're a lot more entrepreneurial. They would rather work for happiness than a 9 to 5. A lot of times they want to dream big. They want to be influencers. They want to be YouTube stars, but they don't know how to start their channel. And this is some of the things that I'm desperately trying to work on. And that's what, by the way, this is where I get happy. I swear to God, this is where I get happy. Thank you. Is that this is what I'm trying to create. I sound a little bit like Johnny Cochran, so forgive me. But I'm trying to create seekers and peakers, not moaners and groaners. Seekers and peakers are where it's at. Seekers are like the kids that are seeking opportunities. The ones that are just they're online saying everything sucks. They'll spend hours looking to be offended. No one cares. Like, no one. So if our students are out there looking for opportunities, they're ahead. And this is what I love about this crowd, is that you guys are all peakers. By that, when you start congregating with people, you start sharing information. You start talking about current trends. You start looking into blockchain. You start looking into new emerging things. And those people, they peek around the corner because they see what's next. When my kids congregate with one another, they can pick up on trends and see what's next and get ahead of it. And that is why I'm happy that we have the Started Up Foundation. Started Up Foundation was really backed by the IEDC. Essentially what I do is that once a month, and actually you were there last month. What I do is once a month I have essentially either a co-working space or a corporate sponsor give us a location. We're averaging about 60 to 70 kids a night. And essentially what they do is the nonprofit comes in and pitches their problem to my students. And by my students, we're getting kids from all over high schools around Hamilton County. And so when they said, hey, here we had a pregnant shelter for girls. We had the Fishers YMCA. We had other like nonprofits, and they say, this is our problem, give us some solutions. And so that is why we've been doing all these things. And the things that we're doing is we're providing the following things. Number one, soft skills, which I hate the term soft skills because it makes it sound irrelevant. But we're getting our kids to listen to people's problems, start practicing some empathy. We're also having literally local entrepreneurs and nonprofits pitch. We stop, collaborate, and listen. No, the Vanilla Ice jokes are out. Okay. All right, because I was to the extreme. Okay, but no, we have our students collaborate and listen to one another. In that time, they had 35 minutes to listen to the problem, whiteboard out some solutions, and then they have to have a 3-minute pitch for each team. And then the other thing you do, as you guys know well aware of, is that we network with each other. Our students, a student from Noblesville gets to work with a student from Westfield. A student from Mount Vernon gets this with a kid from Manual High School, etc. Because a lot of times, our students, when they're at this age, if they start knowing people and getting out, it is huge. And my daughter can talk to you about that later. That's where we're with Seth Godin. And then lastly, we get each other off our phones. One of my favorite things is at these events, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds put down their phone and talk to each other and look at people in the eye. And it is that I get most excited about because they start finding their purpose. Our students are so anxious and they feel like I want to give back, but they don't know what to. So if I can corral them, get them off their freaking phone, and engage, then they start building some confidence, and they also start networking with other nonprofits and small businesses. And lastly, oh, that came out bad. Through the help of IEDC and another corporate sponsor that I'm not allowed to talk about yet, we're expanding to 9 cities in Indiana, and then another 10 cities across the United States. If by chance you're like, man, I got so much money that I want to spend, we are a tax-deductible 501c3. So if you are ever in the mood, by the way, none of the money goes to me. We are also the nation's first student venture capital. So we are raising about $300,000 this year because we already have 4 people in our investment portfolio, 16 to 18-year-olds who are crushing it, and I love them. Holy crap, this is at the end. You gave me 30 seconds, so here we go. Yeah, so essentially, oh, by the way, yeah, I got a podcast for everyone. Let's do it. My sincere hope is, and I'm being dead serious on this last one as I have no time, kids are depressed, and there is a better way. And you get them engaged, you start getting them to think like an entrepreneur, you're going to give them the gift of a better mindset. Thank you.
Don't delay. Get your ticket for the next Sparks event today.